My parents gave me a choice: either move to another country and never speak to us again, or marry the woman we picked. When I refused, they held a secret family vote to exile me, blocked my number, and told my boss I was dangerously unstable. At the next reunion, I walked in with news that would tear their plans apart. My father stood up and shouted, "You've ruined everything!" This all started 6 months ago, but I've been too angry to even talk about it until now. Typing this makes my blood pressure spike all over again, but I need to get this out there because what happened next is about to go nuclear. Fair warning, this is long, and I'm not looking for advice on how to fix my relationship with these people. That bridge isn't just burned. I salted the fucking earth. I, 28M, come from a traditional South Asian family that immigrated to America when I was 5. My parents always had this weird obsession with maintaining our cultural values while simultaneously flexing their success story to relatives back home. Growing up, everything was about appearances. My dad, Christopher, 58, built a moderately successful business importing textiles, and my mom, Colleen, 54, turned into this social climbing nightmare who treated our family status like it was her personal brand. I was always the good son. I played their game through college, got a decent job in marketing, and even lived at home until 25 to save money. Translation: so they could monitor every aspect of my life. The only time I ever really pushed back was when I refused to join Dad's business. That created this weird tension where they'd act like they respected my independence while still expecting me to fall in line with everything else. Then I met Stella, 27, at a friend's party last year. She's amazing, smart, ambitious, funny, and unlike anyone I've ever dated. She works in tech and has this refreshing no BS attitude about life. When I brought her home to meet my parents, I could immediately tell they hated her. Not because of anything she did, but because she didn't fit their idea of a proper South Asian girl who would bend to their will. Stella doesn't speak our language, doesn't care about impressing judgmental aunties, and worst of all, to them, she has her own opinions. The tension whenever she came over was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mom would make these passive-aggressive comments about girls these days having no respect for tradition. My dad would just sit there in disapproving silence. It was exhausting, but I wasn't about to let them dictate my love life. Things were tense but manageable until about 6 months ago. My parents invited me to dinner at home, just the three of us. They were acting weird the whole time, exchanging these loaded glances and asking strange questions about my future plan. I had this gut feeling something was off. After dinner, my dad opened his laptop and started a video call with my uncle and aunt back home. Suddenly, I realized this was an ambush. My mom pulls out this photo album I'd never seen before and starts showing me pictures of this girl named Addison. Turns out Addison is the daughter of Kyle, my dad's business partner, and they've apparently been discussing our future for months. I sat there in shock while they laid out their grand plan. I was supposed to marry Addison within the year, move into a house they would help buy, aka control, and eventually take over the family business with Kyle's family. They talked about it like it was already decided, like I wasn't even a person with my own life and relationship. When I mentioned Stella, my mom literally waved her hand dismissively and said she was just a phase I needed to get over. My dad straight up told me that Stella would never understand our ways and would bring shame to our family. The kicker? They'd already started telling extended family about my engagement to Addison. I lost it, told them they were living in the wrong century, and that there was no way in hell I was breaking up with Stella to marry some stranger they picked out. My dad got all quiet, always a bad sign, and told me I had two choices: either agree to their arrangement or move to another country and never contact them again. Like, WTF? Who says that to their kid? I walked out, blocked their calls for a few days because I needed space to process this insanity. When I finally agreed to meet them again, thinking maybe they'd calm down, they doubled down hard. My cousin Nora texted me a week later with screenshots from the family WhatsApp group. These people had held a literal family vote about whether to exile me from the family for my disobedience, like I was living in some medieval kingdom or some shit. The vote was 14-3 in favor of cutting me off completely until I came to my senses. The only three who stood up for me were Nora and two younger cousins who got immediately silenced. Then things got even worse. I was suddenly getting weird looks at work. My boss Damien called me into his office, looking all concerned, and asked if I was doing okay mentally. Turns out my dad had called him to say I was going through a dangerous mental breakdown and might be unstable. He suggested they watch me closely and maybe reduce my responsibilities. My own father tried to sabotage my career because I wouldn't marry his business partner's daughter. Over the next few weeks, it was like I ceased to exist to my family. Every number blocked. My mom even returned a package I sent for my little cousin's birthday. Extended family members I'd been close with for years suddenly wouldn't respond to messages. It was like someone hit a switch, and my entire support system vanished overnight. The final straw was when my landlord called to tell me my parents had contacted him, claiming that they were worried about my behavior and asking if I'd been causing problems. They were literally trying to mess with my housing situation. That's when something inside me snapped. This wasn't just controlling behavior anymore. This was a coordinated campaign to destroy my life because I wouldn't be their puppet. I started digging. With my tech background, it wasn't hard to piece together what was really happening. Found out through industry connections that Dad's business was struggling big time. The arrangement with Kyle wasn't just about tradition. It was a desperate business merger disguised as a marriage. They were using me as a human bargaining chip to save their failing company. I spent weeks gathering information, making connections, learning everything about their business vulnerabilities. I started documenting every single attempt they made to sabotage me. Screenshots, emails, recorded conversations with people they'd contacted, building my case, planning my response. I was done being the good son who just took their abuse. Stella has been my rock-yon through all of this. When I told her everything, she didn't run. She got angry with me. Not the kind of person to tell me to be the bigger person, or some BS like that. She knows what it's like when family betrays you, and she's been helping me plan what comes next. 3 days ago, I found out through Nora that there's a big family reunion happening this weekend. Everyone will be there, including Kyle and his daughter Addison. They didn't invite me, obviously. They think I'm still in the dark, licking my wounds and maybe ready to come crawling back. They have no idea what's coming. I've spent the last 6 months turning my hurt into the most comprehensive revenge plan possible. I'm not just going to show up at that reunion. I'm going to nuke their entire world from orbit. The information I have, the connections I've made, the leverage I've built. My father is going to wish he'd never given me that ultimatum. They tried to exile me. They tried to take away my relationship, my career, my reputation, and my home because I wouldn't be their obedient little puppet. They're about to learn what happens when you back someone into a corner with nothing to lose. Next update coming after the reunion. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens when I walk into that party and tear their perfect little plan to shreds. Update 1. Reading your comments made me feel less crazy, like I'm not the only one who thinks my family has completely lost their minds. A bunch of you asked for updates, so here's what's been happening since my parents tried to throw me away like I was fucking nothing. The day after I found out about the family exile vote, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my boss Damien. This was weird because it was Saturday morning, and we don't have that kind of relationship. When I called back, he sounded all awkward and asked if I could come into the office for a quick chat about some concerns that came up. I already knew what this was about, but I played dumb and agreed. Walking into that empty weekend office felt like entering some bizarre alternate reality. Damien was there with HR, looking all concerned and uncomfortable. They sat me down and started talking about how they'd received some troubling information about my mental state and family situation. Apparently, my father had called Damien directly and told him I was having a complete mental breakdown, was potentially violent, and might do something to damage the company's reputation. I sat there listening to them repeat these absolute lies about me while trying not to flip the fucking table. They'd reduced my access to client accounts as a precaution and wanted me to voluntarily see the company therapist. It was surreal. The previous week, I'd landed a major account, and now I was suddenly being treated like I might go postal any minute. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and showed them how my parents had just tried to access my account using the emergency information I'd stupidly left with them years ago. Then I showed them the texts from my cousin Nora with screenshots of the family WhatsApp group, where they were literally plotting how to destroy my life because I refused an arranged marriage. The HR lady's face went from concerned professional to "oh shit" real quick. That meeting ended with apologies and assurances that my position was secure. But the damage was done. I could see the way people looked at me around the office, the whispers that stopped when I walked in. My father had poisoned the well. Even with management on my side, I knew my reputation there was permanently tainted. Then came the financial fuckery. I discovered my parents had called my landlord, my car insurance company, and even my student loan servicer, trying to verify information about me. They were looking for vulnerability, anything they could use as leverage. Thankfully, I'd had the foresight to change all my passwords and set up two-factor on everything after our blow-up. The worst part was the isolation. Having your entire family ghost you overnight is a mindfuck of epic proportion. People I'd spent holidays with, cousins I grew up with, all suddenly treating me like I had a contagious disease. Only Nora kept in touch, feeding me information from the inside. She told me how my parents were spinning this elaborate story about me having a mental breakdown, claiming they were the victims of my irrational behavior. They'd even gotten my childhood photos removed from the family WhatsApp group, like they were erasing me from existence. Through all this, Stella was my rock. After a particularly shitty day when I found out my parents had contacted my dentist, my fucking dentist, looking for info on me, she came over with takeout and listened to me rage for hours. But she also asked the question that changed everything. What did my father's business actually do, and why was this arranged marriage so important to them? That night, I started digging. I created a throwaway Insta account and followed some family members who'd blocked me. Through their public posts, I found connections to my father's business associates. LinkedIn became my best friend. I traced connections, looked up business registrations, found old news articles. Everything was public info, but putting it together took time. What I discovered made everything click. My father's business was on the verge of collapse. They'd overextended on a major expansion just before COVID hit and never recovered. The business partner, Kyle, whose daughter Addison I was supposed to marry, owned a complementary business with access to major distribution networks my father desperately needed. This wasn't about tradition or culture at all. It was about using me as a human bargaining chip to save them from bankruptcy. Even more infuriating? I found an old chat with my mom where she'd questioned my relationship with Stella by saying we weren't financially compatible. Rich coming from someone whose business was secretly circling the drain while they maintained the facade of success. That's when my revenge plan started to take shape. Not out of some cold, calculated place. I was fucking furious. These people tried to ruin my life, to save their business, all while pretending it was about family values. They didn't see me as a son. They saw me as an asset to be leveraged. Step 1 was securing my own stability. I updated my resume and started applying for jobs, specifically targeting competitors in my father's industry. With my marketing background and insider knowledge of how their operations worked, I was an attractive candidate. 3 interviews and 2 weeks later, I landed a position with one of my father's biggest competitors, with a 20% salary bump. Step 2 was intelligence gathering. I still had login access to our family cloud account, where my father sometimes backed up business documents. The man reused the same password for everything. I didn't take anything confidential, but I noted key business relationships, pain points, and upcoming deals. Legal? Absolutely. The account was in my name too, and I was just looking, not copying. Step 3 was building a network. I reached out to former classmates and connections who worked in the industry. Casual coffee meeting, LinkedIn messages, just catching up. In reality, I was creating a map of my father's business world, identifying who might be interested to learn that their solid business partner was actually on the verge of collapse. Through Nora, I learned my parents were planning to announce my engagement to Addison at the upcoming family reunion, even though I'd made my position crystal clear. They figured I'd be so isolated and desperate by then that I'd crawl back and accept their terms. They had no idea I was 10 steps ahead. I created a detailed document of every single thing they'd done to sabotage me. The calls to my workplace, the attempts to access my accounts, the lies they'd spread. I had screenshots, timestamps, recordings of voicemails, not for legal purposes, though it could come to that, but as ammunition. While building my revenge arsenal, I had to deal with real-life consequences of their action. My credit score took a hit when they somehow managed to get an old joint account reactivated and then overdrafted it. My car mysteriously got keyed outside my apartment building the one night my father knew where I'd be from stalking my social media on a fake account. The psychological warfare was constant, designed to break me down. But instead of breaking me, it just fueled my rage. I started working out every day, channeling my anger into physical strength. I deleted most social media and created new private accounts. I changed my phone number, my email, my daily routines. I was becoming someone new, someone hardened by betrayal. 4 weeks ago, I got the intel I was waiting for. Kyle, my father's potential business savior, was having doubts about the partnership. He'd heard rumors about financial instability and was hesitating. The engagement announcement was moved up to reassure him that the families were merging both personally and professionally. The family reunion this weekend wasn't just a social event, it was a last-ditch effort to save my father's crumbling business empire. That's when I finalized my plan, a 3-phase attack designed to expose their lies to the entire family and business community, destroy the business partnership they desperately needed, ensure they faced the consequences of their actions publicly. Each step was carefully planned for maximum psychological impact. I wanted them to feel the same helplessness and betrayal they'd inflicted on me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was coldly, precisely furious. The kind of fury that doesn't scream and break things, but instead dismantles your entire life piece by methodical piece. Yesterday, Nora sent me the final confirmation I needed. The family reunion guest list showing Kyle and Addison as honored guests with a special announcement planned. She also confirmed that no security was planned. They never imagined I'd have the audacity to show up after being exiled. Their arrogance will be their downfall. Tomorrow is the reunion. I've taken the day off work. My new tailored suit is ready. Stella will be by my side, looking absolutely stunning. I've rehearsed exactly what I'll say, prepared files to distribute, and timed my entrance for maximum impact. They think they've beaten me into submission. They think I've been suffering alone while they carried on with their plans. They have no idea that for the past 6 months, I've been constructing the most comprehensive destruction of their social and business world possible. When I walk into that reunion tomorrow, I won't just be crashing a party. I'll be detonating a bomb they themselves built with every betrayal, every lie, every manipulation. My father wants to shout about how I've ruined everything. He hasn't seen anything yet. Final update coming after tomorrow. And believe me, you'll want to hear what happens when they realize exactly who they were fucking with. Update 2. It's done. After 6 months of rage, planning, and waiting, I finally got my revenge, and it was even more satisfying than I imagined. The morning of the reunion, I woke up at 5 a.m. after barely sleeping. My mind was racing, going over every detail of the plan. Stella stayed over the night before to help me prepare. She found me sitting at the kitchen table at dawn, staring at my laptop screen, triple-checking everything. She just put a coffee next to me and squeezed my shoulder. No bullshit pep talks, no "are you sure about this?" Just solid support. Around noon, Nora texted to confirm everyone was arriving. The reunion was at my uncle's house, the same place we'd had family gatherings since I was a kid. She sent a pic of the setup, and I could see they'd gone all out. Fancy decorations, catered food, champagne. A fucking celebration while I was supposedly out there suffering alone. Getting ready felt surreal. Stella and I barely spoke as we dressed. She wore this stunning blue dress that my mother would have hated for being too revealing. It wasn't. I put on a new tailored suit I'd bought specifically for this occasion. The whole time I kept waiting for doubt to creep in, for that voice saying maybe I should be the bigger person. It never came. All I felt was cold determination. We arrived 30 minutes after the announced start time. Through the window, I could see everyone was already inside. About 40 people, including extended family and business associates. Nora had texted that my father was planning to make the big announcement at 4, so our timing was perfect. I checked my phone one last time, confirming that certain emails had been scheduled to send automatically if I didn't cancel them within the next hour. Insurance policy. Walking up to that door with Stella's hand in mine was like stepping into battle. I didn't knock. I still had my key. We just walked in like we belonged there, which technically I did until they voted me out of existence. The reaction was exactly what I'd hoped for. The entire room went silent in waves as people noticed us. Conversations died mid-sentence. My cousin literally dropped a glass. My mother was across the room, frozen with a plate of food, halfway to someone. And my father, the look on his face was priceless. Pure shock mixed with confusion, like his brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just walked in confidently with Stella, nodded at a few relatives who looked less hostile, and headed straight for the drinks table like this was completely normal. The silence was deafening. You could practically hear people's brains short-circuiting. My aunt recovered first, hurrying over with this weird fake smile, asking what I was doing there. I just smiled back and told her I heard there was an important family announcement today, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. Behind her, I could see Kyle and his daughter Addison looking confused. Clearly, they had no idea about the family exile drama. My father finally snapped out of his shock and started moving toward us, with my mother right behind him. They had those tight, fake smiles that meant they were trying to handle this situation without making a scene in front of their guests. Too fucking late. Before they reached us, I clinked my glass loudly. The room went quiet again. All eyes on me. I could feel Stella standing strong beside me, her hand on my back. I thanked everyone for coming together for this special day, saying how rare it was to have both family and important business associates in one place. My father's face went from angry to panic. He knew what was coming. First bomb. I announced that Stella and I were engaged, showing off the ring we'd picked out last week. I made a point of saying how we believed in choosing our own partners based on love and mutual respect, not business arrangement. Kyle looked at my father with confusion. Addison looked relieved. Turns out she wasn't thrilled about this arrangement either. Second bomb. I announced my new position at my father's biggest competitor, mentioning specific deals I'd already helped them secure, deals my father had been counting on. The look of betrayal on his face was almost comical. Did he really think he could try to destroy my life without consequences? Third bomb. I pulled out my phone and pulled up the family WhatsApp screenshots Nora had sent to me, the ones showing the Exile vote, the plans to sabotage my career, the discussions about my personal life as if I were property. I passed my phone around, watching faces change from confusion to shock to embarrassment. Some older relatives looked away. Others seemed genuinely horrified at what they'd been part of. Fourth and final bomb. I revealed the truth about my father's business, how it was failing, how the arranged marriage was actually a desperate attempt to secure a business partnership with Kyle, how they'd been lying to everyone about their financial situation while maintaining this facade of success. I laid out specific numbers, dates, failed deals, information I'd gathered legally, but that they'd kept hidden. The room erupted. Kyle was demanding answers from my father. Relatives were arguing with each other. My mother was frantically trying to do damage control, moving from person to person with increasingly desperate explanations. And my father? He just stood there for a moment, his face going from red to almost purple. Then he pointed at me and screamed, actually screamed, "You've ruined everything." It was the most honest thing he'd said in years. Yes, I had ruined everything. Their plans, their lies, their control. And I wasn't done. I calmly told the room that I'd emailed detailed information about the family business situation to all their investors and partners 10 minutes ago. Nothing confidential, nothing illegal, just the truth that they'd been hiding. I mentioned that I'd also sent the screenshots of their campaign against me to every family member, including those who couldn't attend today. The chaos that followed was both satisfying and sad. Kyle and his family left immediately, with Kyle telling my father not to contact him again. The business deal was obviously dead. Some relatives sided with my parents, calling me ungrateful and disrespectful. Others were clearly uncomfortable, realizing they'd been manipulated into cutting me off. My cousin Nora walked over and hugged me. 2 other cousins followed, a small act of rebellion that clearly infuriated my mother. She tried to intervene, but people were already taking sides, and her social control was crumbling in real time. My father recovered enough to start threatening me. How I'd regret this, how I'd come crawling back when I needed them. I just laughed. What else could they possibly take from me that they hadn't already tried? I told him he should worry more about the calls he'd be getting from his investors tomorrow. We didn't stay long after that. We'd done what we came to do. As we were leaving, my mother tried one last manipulation, asking tearfully how I could do this to my own parents. I told her they stopped being my parents the day they decided I was just a business asset they could trade away. Stella and I went to dinner afterward at this nice restaurant we'd booked. I expected to feel drained, but instead I felt light, like I'd been carrying this rage for so long, and finally putting it down was a physical relief. We toasted to our actual engagement. Yes, that part was real, and to freedom from toxic family. The fallout has been exactly what I expected. My phone blew up with texts from family members, some angry, some apologetic, some just confused. My father's business partners have been calling emergency meeting. According to Nora, 3 major investors pulled out yesterday, and the family is in full crisis mode. My parents tried to contact me through every possible channel, first with threats, then with guilt trips, finally with desperate pleas to talk things through. Too fucking late. I've blocked them everywhere. Some bridges should stay burned. Was it harsh? Absolutely. Was it deserved? 100%. They tried to sacrifice my happiness, my relationship, and my career to save their failing business. They manipulated an entire family against me. They tried to paint me as mentally unstable. They would have happily ruined my life to maintain their facade. I don't regret a single thing. My only regret is not seeing the truth about them sooner. To those saying family is everything, and I should try to reconcile, fuck that noise. They proved family meant nothing to them the moment they held that vote. I've built my own family now with people who actually give a shit about me as a person, not as a pawn in their games. I'm starting a new job next week. Stella and I are looking for a place together. Life goes on, but on my terms now. And that's the best revenge of all. Living well while they deal with the consequences of their own actions.